The roar of fighter jets was a familiar soundtrack to the airbase, but today, one particular engine faltered, a sudden, harsh sputter that shattered the rhythm. Inside the cockpit, the pilot's heart raced as warning lights blinked urgently. Outside, on the tarmac, technicians froze, their confident expressions replaced by confusion and alarm. Harold Grant, a seasoned mechanic with decades of hands-on experience, was in his small corner of the hangar, organizing tools that bore the marks of years of labor. His hands were calloused, his eyes sharp from a lifetime of listening to the subtle language of engines. When the call came, his routine was interrupted, not by panic, but by a calm sense of duty. Rushing to the damaged jet, Harold noted the worn surfaces, the faint smell of burnt oil mingling with the crisp morning air. He crouched beside the engine, his fingers tracing bolts and metal plates that had weathered countless missions. Machines might rely on diagnostics, but Harold relied on intuition owned by time. The other technicians, armed with state-of-the-art tools and tablets, eyed him skeptically. Yet as Harold listened closely, pressing his ear to the engine's cold metal, he began to unravel the story hidden beneath the surface, a tale of fatigue, unseen cracks, and silent warning signs. This wasn't just about repairs. It was a race against time, a battle between experience and technology, and Harold was ready to lead the charge. The soft morning light filtered through the grimy windows of the hangar, casting long shadows across the worn concrete floor. Harold Grant, with his sleeves rolled up and a focused gaze, knelt beside the fighter jet's engine. The hum of distant activity at the airbase was a faint backdrop to the intense silence that surrounded him in this moment. This engine was more than metal and mechanics. It was a living, breathing entity to Harold. He had spent decades listening to engines like this, learning their rhythms, their whispers, and their cries for help. Today, those skills were being tested as never before. Around him, a group of young technicians observed with a mixture of anticipation and skepticism. Their fingers tapped rapidly on diagnostic tablets, scanning streams of data and codes that promised to reveal every fault. Yet, Harold trusted his instincts over any readout. He placed his ear against the cold metal casing of the engine, closing his eyes to block out distractions. The vibrations beneath his palm were subtle but meaningful, a language that only experience could translate. To the untrained, it was silence. To Harold, it was a story waiting to be told. "This engine's telling me something," he murmured softly, his voice barely above the ambient noise. "It's not just about parts failing. It's about how they fail and why." The tension in the room was palpable. The clock was ticking and the stakes couldn't be higher. But Harold's steady hands and sharp mind were ready for the challenge, determined to uncover the hidden fault before it was too late. Harold's fingers moved with practiced precision as he carefully loosened bolts and removed panels, revealing the complex network beneath the engine's exterior. The intricate web of wires, valves, and gears was a testament to the marvel of modern engineering. But to Harold, it was a familiar landscape, one he had navigated countless times before. He examined each component closely, searching for signs of wear, stress, or damage that might escape even the most advanced sensors. His eyes caught a faint, almost imperceptible crack along a crucial fuel line, barely visible, but enough to disrupt the engine's delicate balance. "Young engineers might overlook this," Harold muttered, tracing the crack with a careful fingertip, "but experience spots what machines can't." The team exchanged glances, their initial doubts replaced by growing respect. They understood that the mission's success hinged on Harold's keen eye and unwavering dedication. Hours passed as Harold worked tirelessly, his hands steady despite the mounting pressure. The crack was carefully repaired, and every connection was inspected and reinforced. Slowly, the engine began to regain its strength, the faint hum returning to the hangar. The clock was still ticking, but hope had been reignited. As the repairs were completed, the tension in the hangar was palpable. Harold and the engineering team gathered around the massive engine, ready to initiate the crucial tests that would determine if their efforts had succeeded. The air was thick with anticipation. Every eye focused on the control panel and the gauges that monitored the engine's vital signs. Harold adjusted his worn cap and took a deep breath, steadying his nerves. "All right, team," he said, his voice calm yet commanding. "Let's bring her back to life." With a series of precise commands, the engine roared to life, its powerful turbines spinning smoothly for the first time since the emergency landing. The vibrations were steady, the temperature stable, and the sound of the engine filled the hangar with renewed hope. The younger engineers exchanged glances, their skepticism replaced by awe. They had witnessed the undeniable power of experience and intuition, an old mechanic's touch bringing a complex machine back from the brink. Harold smiled faintly, knowing this was just the beginning. The mission still awaited, but for now, the battle against time and failure had been won. As the repaired fighter jet sat poised and ready, the atmosphere at the airbase shifted from tension to quiet confidence. News of Harold Grant's success spread quickly, reaching the ears of senior officers and commanding personnel. Admiral Mitchell, a stern yet fair leader with decades of naval experience, requested a private meeting with Harold. In the polished office lined with plaques and historical photographs, the Admiral extended a firm handshake. "Mr. Grant," he began, "your expertise and dedication have not only saved a valuable asset, but reminded us all of the irreplaceable value of experience. Technology alone cannot replace the human element." Harold nodded, humbled but proud. "Thank you, sir. I was just doing my duty." The Admiral smiled. "We are considering expanding roles for veterans like you, experienced hands who can guide the next generation. I hope you'll consider joining this initiative." As Harold left the office, a renewed sense of purpose filled him. The mission was not just about machines, but about legacy, honor, and the bridge between past and future. The following days at the airbase were marked by a shift in dynamics. Harold found himself not just repairing machines, but mentoring young technicians eager to learn. In the bustling workshop, where digital readouts and touchscreens dominated, his old-school tools and hands-on approach stood out as a beacon of time-tested wisdom. During a training session, Harold demonstrated techniques honed over decades, explaining not just the how, but the why behind each method. The young engineers listened intently, their skepticism giving way to genuine respect and curiosity. Lieutenant Sarah Miller, one of the brightest young officers, approached Harold after class. "Sir, your experience is invaluable. How did you develop such an intuitive understanding of these engines?" Harold smiled warmly. "It's about patience and listening, not just to machines but to the lessons they teach over time." Together, they began bridging the gap between cutting-edge technology and practical wisdom, forging a new path forward for the airbase. Despite growing respect for Harold's expertise, some younger engineers remained skeptical, favoring modern diagnostics over traditional methods. Tension surfaced during a critical engine diagnostic session, where Harold recommended a manual vibration test alongside electronic analysis. "This is outdated," argued one technician, glancing at his tablet. "Our sensors provide precise data. Why risk manual errors?" Harold met his gaze steadily. Technology is a tool, not a substitute for experience. Machines tell stories that sensors can't always hear. You have to learn to listen. The room fell silent as his words sank in. Slowly, the technician nodded, acknowledging the wisdom in Harold's approach. Outside the workshop, Harold reflected on the challenges ahead. Building trust across generations was as delicate and vital as the finest engine repair, requiring patience, understanding, and respect. In the days that followed, Harold's influence grew steadily within the airbase. Young technicians who once doubted his methods now sought his advice and collaboration. One afternoon, he found himself working closely with Lieutenant Sarah Miller on a stubborn engine fault that had baffled the team for days. Together, they combed through schematics and conducted detailed inspections. Harold's practiced eye and Sarah's tech savvy combined in perfect harmony, leading them to uncover a minute crack in a fuel valve, something sensors had missed. The repair required precision and calm nerves. As they worked side by side, Sarah turned to Harold with a smile. "You were right, sir. Sometimes the old ways really are the best." Harold chuckled softly. "And sometimes it's the new ways. The key is knowing when to use each." Their partnership symbolized a new era of cooperation, blending tradition with innovation to keep the mission and the legacy alive. As the sun set over the airbase, casting long shadows across the hangars and runways, Harold found a quiet moment on the observation deck. The sprawling sea of metal and machinery below was a stark reminder of both the progress made and the challenges that lay ahead. His thoughts drifted to his early days as a young mechanic, full of ambition and raw determination. The years had carved deep lines into his face and taught him hard lessons about patience, humility, and resilience. The accident that ended his active duty still haunted the corners of his mind, but now, amid renewed purpose, those memories felt less like burdens and more like fuel for his dedication. Lieutenant Sarah Miller joined him, her gaze following his as he looked out over the base. "Sir, your journey inspires all of us. How do you carry the weight of so many years?" Harold smiled softly. "By remembering that every challenge is part of a greater story. Our legacy is built not just on successes, but on perseverance through hardship." Together they watched the stars emerge, a silent testament to the enduring spirit of those who serve. The airbase was abuzz with activity as the date of the mission approached. Harold found himself in the midst of it all, overseeing final checks, consulting with engineers, and ensuring that every detail was perfect. The fighter jet he had helped restore stood ready on the tarmac, a symbol of resilience and teamwork. Each day brought new challenges, but Harold's calm presence anchored the team. He knew the stakes were high, not just for the success of the mission, but for the safety of those who would pilot the jet into the unknown. One evening, as twilight bathed the base in soft hues, Harold gathered the engineering team. "Remember," he said, "this isn't just about machines, it's about people. Their lives depend on what we do." His words resonated deeply, strengthening the bond between the team as they prepared for the journey ahead. The morning dawned crisp and clear, the perfect conditions for the mission ahead. Harold stood on the flight line, watching as the fighter jet's pilot conducted final pre-flight checks. The once disabled engine now hummed with steady power, a testament to the tireless efforts and expertise of the entire team. The base buzzed with anticipation and quiet pride. Harold's eyes met those of Lieutenant Sarah Miller, who gave a reassuring nod. They had weathered storms of doubt and challenge, and now stood united in purpose. As the jet roared down the runway and lifted into the sky, Harold allowed himself a moment of relief and satisfaction. The mission was underway, and though uncertainty lay ahead, the blend of experience and innovation had made all the difference. After the successful mission, the base settled into a calm rhythm. Harold found a quiet corner in the officers' lounge, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. The blend of old wisdom and new technology had triumphed, proving that experience remained invaluable in a world racing toward the future. Lieutenant Sarah Miller joined him, carrying a cup of coffee and a smile. "Sir, your work changed the course of this mission. We all learned so much." Harold nodded, humbled yet proud. It was a team effort. But it's important to remember, sometimes the greatest lessons come from listening closely to what the machines aren't saying. As dusk painted the sky in soft colors, Harold felt a renewed sense of purpose. His legacy was not just in the repairs, but in the bridges he had built between generations. The days following the mission transformed the airbase into a hub of learning and renewal. In the expansive workshop filled with the scent of oil and metal, Harold Grant stood at the front of the room, surrounded by a group of young technicians whose eyes gleamed with anticipation and respect. This was no ordinary training. It was a rite of passage, a sharing of wisdom honed through decades of service and countless hours spent listening to the language of machines. Harold's voice resonated clearly, weaving stories of challenges faced and lessons learned. "It's not just about turning a wrench or reading a gauge," he explained, his hands gesturing emphatically. "It's about understanding the heartbeat of the engine, feeling its rhythms, and knowing when something is off, sometimes before the sensors even notice." He paused, scanning the faces before him. Among the crowd was Lieutenant Sarah Miller, a determined young officer who had quickly become one of his most eager students. Her sharp mind and quick adaptation impressed Harold, but it was her willingness to blend tradition with innovation that made her stand out. After the session, as the group filtered out, Sarah lingered. Approaching Harold with a thoughtful smile, she said, "Sir, your mentorship has reshaped the way we approach our work. I feel more prepared, not just for the machines, but for the responsibility that comes with them." Harold nodded, a warmth spreading across his face. That's exactly why we do this. To equip you not just with tools and techniques, but with the mindset to face any challenge, whether it's today or decades from now. The torch was being passed deliberately, with care and pride. Each lesson imparted was a thread woven into the fabric of a legacy, one that balanced respect for the past with an embrace of the future. As Harold watched the young technicians leave, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing the spirit of dedication and excellence would continue to thrive long after his own time. The atmosphere at the airbase shifted palpably in the weeks that followed Harold's intensive training sessions. The workshop buzzed with a renewed energy, a fusion of the old and the new. The younger technicians, once hesitant about traditional methods, now approached their work with a newfound respect for the lessons Harold had imparted. They weren't just following procedures. They were beginning to understand the why behind every bolt tightened and every gauge monitored. Harold observed this transformation with quiet satisfaction. The melding of cutting-edge diagnostic tools and seasoned intuition created a powerful synergy. He often found himself engaged in spirited discussions with Lieutenant Sarah Miller and other young engineers, debating the merits of different approaches and learning from their fresh perspectives as much as teaching his own. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the workshop windows, Harold stood beside a complex engine assembly, demonstrating how to detect subtle signs of wear that no sensor could catch. Around him, the young technicians leaned in, hanging on his every word. This, Harold explained, tapping a barely visible hairline crack, could easily be missed if you rely solely on technology. But with experience, you learn to listen, to really listen to what the machine is telling you. The room was silent for a moment, the weight of his words sinking in. Then, as if on cue, a new sense of commitment ignited in the eyes of every listener. This was more than maintenance. It was a responsibility, a craft passed down through generations. Harold smiled, knowing that the legacy he had fought to preserve was now in capable hands, ready to face the challenges of a new era. As the airbase prepared for its next major deployment, the responsibilities on Harold's shoulders grew heavier. No longer just a mechanic fixing engines, he had become a mentor, a leader, and a guardian of legacy. The pressure was immense. Every decision could mean the difference between success and disaster, life and death. During a late-night briefing, Harold addressed a room filled with young engineers and officers. The fatigue was evident in their eyes, but so was their determination. "Remember," Harold began, his voice steady and resolute, "this isn't just about machines. It's about people. The pilots who trust their lives to our work. The families who wait for their safe return." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle in. Every bolt tightened, every gauge checked, carries with it the lives of those who fly. Our duty is sacred. The room was silent, the gravity of the moment understood by all. Outside, the distant hum of engines signaled the approach of a new mission, one that would test not just technology, but the very spirit of those who served. Harold stepped outside, gazing up at the stars that stretched endlessly above. In the vastness of the night sky, he found both solace and resolve, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. After months of relentless preparation, the airbase found moments of calm between missions. Harold sought solace in the small garden behind the officers' quarters, where the scent of blooming wildflowers mingled with the salty sea breeze. Here, away from the clang of tools and hum of machinery, he allowed himself to reflect. The years had left their marks, not just on his hands and face, but etched deep within his spirit. Memories of past battles, both mechanical and personal, surfaced with bittersweet clarity. The accident that ended his active duty, the years of doubt and distance from the front line, and now this renaissance of purpose, all intertwined in his mind. Lieutenant Sarah Miller found him there one evening, her expression gentle yet curious. "Sir, do you ever regret the path you took?" Harold looked up, a faint smile crossing his lips. "Regret? No. Every hardship shaped me, every challenge taught me. Even in the darkest times, I found meaning." She nodded thoughtfully. "Your journey inspires us all." As twilight deepened, the garden seemed to hold its breath, a quiet witness to a man who had given everything, yet still sought to give more. The morning sun rose over the Naval Air Base, casting warm light on the bustling activity below. Today was the day, the culmination of months of hard work, dedication, and unyielding perseverance. The fighter jet, restored and refined, stood ready on the runway, its sleek form gleaming under the clear sky. Harold moved among the crew, his presence a calm anchor amidst the controlled chaos. Technicians ran final checks, pilots prepared for takeoff, and commanders issued last-minute briefings. The air buzzed with anticipation and resolve. Suddenly, an alert flashed on a console. A minor glitch, a routine check, but it drew immediate attention. Harold and the engineering team sprang into action, swiftly diagnosing the issue. Thanks to their meticulous preparation, the problem was isolated and resolved within moments, ensuring no disruption to the mission. As the jet soared into the sky, Harold allowed himself a moment of quiet pride. The journey had tested every ounce of their skill and spirit. Yet, it was their combined experience, teamwork, and resilience that had ensured success. The USS Arleigh Burke returned to port under clear skies, welcomed by cheers and proud faces of families and fellow servicemen. Harold Grant stood among them, a quiet smile gracing his weathered face as he took in the culmination of months of dedication and sacrifice. In a formal ceremony, Admiral Mitchell presented Harold with a commendation, acknowledging not only his technical expertise but his pivotal role in bridging generations and fostering a culture of respect and learning. Harold accepted the honor with humility, aware that his journey was both a personal victory and a testament to the enduring power of perseverance. As he looked out over the shimmering harbor, the sun casting golden light on the water, Harold felt a profound sense of peace. His legacy was not just inscribed on medals or plaques, but lived on in the hearts and minds of those he had inspired. The sea stretched endlessly before him, a reminder that while one chapter had closed, the voyage of honor, duty, and dedication would continue, carried forward by new hands, guided by the lessons of the past.